everyone, and welcome to today's webinar From Investment to Impact, Thrively's Formula for Transformative PD. I can tell that you probably think that I'm super excited, so we're thrilled to have you here with us. My name is Jasmine Cox, and I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Thrively. I'll be your host today alongside my colleague, Dr. Marion Smith Jr., for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to share a little bit about Thrively and cover a few logistics to ensure we have a smooth and enjoyable webinar experience. Thrively was founded on a core philosophy that every child has a genius and they deserve to thrive. At Thrively, it's what's strong with you, not what's wrong with you. Our core mission is to bring a paradigm shift in education through asset-based learning, and we do this by creating strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful learning environments that impact academic outcomes. At Thrively, we created the industry's first strengths assessment to unlock the positive learning identities and strengths of every student. We measure hope, not as an emotion, but as a cognitive trait with our Hope Index, which helps develop agency and pathways. And lastly, we ensure emotional security with our well-being check-in. Now for a few logistics, today's session is only 30 minutes and is simply just an overview of what's to come here at Thrively. We invite you to use the Q&A box at any time during the webinar to submit your questions, and we'll address them as many as possible during the Q&A portion of our time together. Also, feel free to use the chat box for any comments and feedback. For those that are joining us live today, a continuing education certification, along with today's recording and presentation materials discussed, will be sent to you 48 hours in your email, so don't forget to check. And for our school-based educators tuning in, introduce us to your school leadership and be entered into a drawing to win a free Thrively pilot account. See the link in the chat for more information about this. So before we begin our time together, let's take a moment to activate our minds and to hear our voices. Take a moment to look at this image. It's one of my favorites. Choose a character that embodies where you are as it relates to your feelings about the end of the school year and your current journey as an educator. I'd like to invite you to take about 60 to 90 seconds to pause and reflect, and then place the number in the chat that represents where you are right now. I'll start by modeling for you. I think I'm number 10 today. Dr. Marion, how about you?
I am number 9. I'm balancing.
I like it. Let's see what we have going on in the chat, guys. Look at this picture and let us know how you're feeling today. 7, that's a good one.
Here we go. 5 there, swinging into GMSA prep. 14. See that? 10 and 11.
Yes.
Some 11s there.
Of that.
15, reaching for more. Like that.
Love it. A few more seconds. I like that, Miss Claudia. Maybe we can help you out today. Thank you all for your engagement. I really, really appreciate it. We have a few more in the chat, just a few more seconds.
Here we go. 12. All those
understand.
plates, right?
I can understand. Thank you all again. So today, for our time together, we're focused on 3 key learning outcomes. First, we'll rethink how PD is defined and how PD funds can be more strategically allocated to build educator capacity and drive meaningful cultural change. Next, we'll explore Thrively's innovative professional learning framework that's designed for lasting impact. And finally, in our short overview of time today, we'll introduce you to our research-based 6-question district self-assessment to help you begin a transformative PD journey in your own context. This is where we begin to operationalize these concepts. So again, a little bit about myself. My name is Jasmine. I've spent 15 years in education, moving through roles from classroom teacher to special education director to building principal. In the last 5 years, I transitioned to EdTech as a project manager, which brings me now here to Thrively as a customer success manager. I'm sure you could tell that I have a little bit of an accent, so I'm from Eastern North Carolina, and I'm also a proud mom of 2 future Olympians, my daughter Marley, who's 11 years old, and my son Lincoln, who's 8. And when I'm not working with or serving amazing educators like yourself, I'm probably catching a Broadway show or diving into the latest Marvel movie. Now I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Dr. Marion.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Marion Smith Jr., and I have the pleasure and privilege of serving as the Chief Learning Officer here at Thrively. And I always like to begin when I introduce myself by saying that you must be in the work to lead the work effectively and efficiently, right? And so, with this understanding, I come to you as a career-long educator and a racial equity scholar practitioner. So, this is year 25 for me. So, I thank my genes and my mom and dad for making me look so youthful. But all jokes aside, I've served in different education capacities across 6 different states. So, from classroom teacher to school principal to superintendent of schools, and most recently, before joining Thrively, as assistant state superintendent here in Maryland. And so, I like to say that all of these experiences have really enabled me to learn more, to unlearn more, and to relearn more how best to support oftentimes overlooked or minimized critical factor in that learning and teaching equation, and that's the adults in the system, right? And so when I'm not working with educators, you can find me roller skating. I like to say quads and not inline. I'm traditional in that way. And I like to maintain my undisputed Uno card champion titleship. And so it's my pleasure to be with all of you here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mariana. I really appreciate it. So again, here at Thrively, we humanize learning. We help create strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful classrooms that increase student academic outcomes. As I shared earlier, having worked with diverse student populations in a variety of roles, I've seen how critical it is to take a strengths-based approach. As a former principal, I know, like many of us know, that data without action is simply just numbers. But none of this works without effective professional development for educators, which brings us to today's focus. I'll now turn it back over to you, Dr. Marion, to walk us through our professional development framework.
No, I appreciate that, Jasmine. So before we delve into just all of the innovative PD opportunities that we curated here at Thrively, I do want to take a few minutes to walk us through and to frame our approach. And so at Thrively, we design and approach professional learning and professional development focused on what we call that evidence of adult behavior change that creates the conditions to increase student achievement. Our PD framework has 3 components. You see that on our screen there. Component number 1 is a redefined and operationalized definition of professional development. Component number 2 is our professional learning is anchored in like the practice and the research of managing complex change. And component number 3 is how we address adult professional learning principles. And I want to unpack those just a little bit more. And so, as I unpack this a little bit more, I invite each of you to really think about your own professional learning journey. So, whether those are professional learning opportunities that you've created or professional learning opportunities that you've been a part of, and listen and think about what you may need to incorporate, what you may need to modify, or what you may need to even eliminate to maximize your efforts around professional learning. And so, I shared that Thrively, we have a 3-part professional learning framework. Component number 1 is our redefined and operationalized definition of this work. And so at Thrively, our professional learning is designed to be comprehensive, sustained, job embedded, and collaborative. Not only those 4 key components, but with an end result. And that end result is really to improve educator effectiveness and to strengthen student educational outcomes. Part 2 of our framework is ensuring that we address what we've learned over the past 20 years from the research and evidence around managing complex change. And so I was introduced to this research probably 16 or 17 years ago, and it stands as a foundation for how I think about building systems and structures that really support the adults around their behavior change. And so at Thrively, we have opportunities to support educators to really deepen areas that are essential to moving any adult learning work forward. So as you see on this screen, those 5 areas that need to be in place are number 1, vision, number 2, skills, the third one is incentives, the fourth is resources, and the fifth is an action plan. What we've learned from the research is that when all 5 of these areas are in place and they're operationalized, so it's not important just to have them in place, but they have to be operationalized within the system, you get the adult behavior on the right-hand side. However, research shows us that when one of these areas is missing, it results in a specific adult behavior. So let's take a look at column number 2, for example. If vision is missing in your professional learning approach, oftentimes the experienced adult behavior is confusion. Wow, Dr. Smith, I really want to do this work, but I'm not sure what we're doing, right? Like the vision isn't clear. Let's take a look at row number three. If your professional development opportunities are missing developing educator skills, oftentimes the adult behavior is anxiety. Wow, Jasmine, I really want to move this work forward, but I don't think I have the skills to be able to do this. And so you can see the rest of the adult behaviors experienced with the when the other three areas are missing. And so once again, I invite you to think about what you may be feeling or what other adults are feeling in your school or district as you think about the many initiatives and the professional learning that you're already involved in.
Hey, Dr. Marion.
And finally, the last component of our Thrively PD framework is addressing adult learning principles. So for those of us that are in the K through 12 space, we have often heard about pedagogy, right? That's the science of teaching children, but rarely do we hear about andragogy. And so that is the method and the practice of teaching adult learners. And this has become central to our professional development framework here at Thrively because it really focuses on highly effective resources and strategies to support our adult learners. Take a deep breath there. We have our framework. And so now that we have a common understanding of how we approach PL and professional development here at Thrively, let's learn about how we can begin to humanize learning together. And so Jasmine and I are excited to officially launch our innovative PD opportunities and different professional learning series that have been designed and carefully curated with all of you in mind and anchoring in the research. I would like to say anchoring in the scholar practitioner research. And so with that, Jasmine, can you tell us about our first opportunity?
Absolutely, I'd be honored to share Dr. Marion. As he shared, this webinar is the official launch to our professional development and professional learning series. So I'm super excited that you guys have the inside scoop. So if you're someone who continues to seek information like I do and best practices, these self-directed modules are just for you. You can continue to grow your knowledge and expertise one module at a time, of course, on your own time. Our 3 certification paths focus on a strengths-based education, hope as a cognitive trait, and educator self-care. Again, as an educator, I found that these self-paced learning opportunities were invaluable for educators at different stages of my professional growth and potentially for yours. Now, let's move on to our Culture of Care program, which builds on these foundational elements.
Jasmine, if I could just add something there. So, as you're listening, whether it's live or when you're watching this back in the recording, think about your own professional learning journey. Think about your own personal learning journey and look at the different innovative PD opportunities that are available and determine, what makes sense for you? Like, what is the entry point of increasing your understanding of what it means to humanize learning in those areas of strengths, hope, well-being, connections, because it's all about what is going to work for you and how are you going to move this work forward with all of these different opportunities, understanding your context.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Marion. So now as we move on to our culture of care, it is evident with over 40% of teachers leaving the profession within their first 5 years, urgent action is needed. And I want us to all take a second and think about all the people and all the relationships that we've built as our tenure as educators and think about those relationships as they've moved on. Our Culture of Care PD session is a 90-minute professional development experience that is designed for your entire staff and provides a foundational deep dive into the action research and science of humanizing learning, focusing on strengths, well-being, hope, and connections. During this session, your staff will take the Thrively Strengths Assessment, Well-Being Index, and Hope Survey, giving them personalized insights about their own strengths and providing valuable baseline data. Again, as a school principal, I implemented similar wellness initiatives and saw dramatic improvements in staff morale and student outcomes. The most valuable aspect of that, guys, though, is the program is that it's just not theoretical, it provides practical, research-based backed tools that educators can implement immediately to celebrate staff strengths, prioritize their well-being, and instill hope. This session lays the groundwork for the most extensive and intensive work we'll discuss in our Culture of Hope program, which Dr. Marion will share more about now. Dr. Marion?
I appreciate that, Jasmine. And so, as you all are listening, I ask yourself, are you ready to foster a culture of well-being and hope with your colleagues and with other staff members? And so, if the answer to that is yes, our next foundational professional learning opportunity is our culture of hope. Remember, Jasmine mentioned that at Thrively, when we talk about hope, we're not talking about hope as an emotion, we're talking about it as a cognitive trait. And so our culture of hope professional learning provides you with two 1 hour PD sessions where you'll actually have the opportunity to explore the science and the psychology of hope and its impact on academics. And staff will be able to examine what it means to humanize learning by continuing to explore elements of our culture of care, meaning exploring the Thrively Strengths Assessment, or our Wellbeing Index, and our Hope Survey. Also, you'll receive personalized support from Team Thrively as you develop a staff action plan. It goes back to our managing complex change. So what now, what Dr. Smith? We've gone through this action research. We've participated in the different strengths assessments. We've gotten a little bit of the coaching, but now we have an action plan that's going to help you measure and raise the hope levels and enhance self-care, team building, and motivation of staff. And what I found like really powerful and impactful about this particular professional learning opportunity is it allows us to create the space and those conditions to get a deeper understanding and a holistic view of the adults we work with. How often do you work with colleagues and you don't know what their strengths are? You don't know a lot about them outside of their name, the classes that they teach, or you may see them in passing if at the secondary level they're not a part of your particular content team. And so this really creates that space of understanding more holistically the adults that are leading and supporting this work. And then you're able to apply this information as a starting point to create not only personal, but those collective plans to move the work forward. Our next opportunity is really anchored in the research that is loud and clear. What we've learned is that students are 30 times more engaged when a school is committed to teaching to their strengths. We can't teach students that we don't know, but we try every day. I used to teach secondary English, but I refer to myself as I'm a teacher of secondary English to students. So I'm not an English secondary teacher, right? I teach students and the content that I teach is English. And so I had to put my students first. And so what does that look like when we're creating an entire school of hope? And so if we know that students are 30 times more engaged when a school is committed to teaching to their strengths, we must take action. And so, with this understanding, and for those that are interested in creating the conditions to implement those systems to ensure that every student's unique needs are met, our School of Hope professional development series is just for you. So, you'll join researcher and author of the School of Hope, Kathleen Beachboard, and members of Team Thrively for two 1 hour foundational professional development sessions. You'll also engage in four 1 hour quarterly sessions with personalized coaching that's going to help you examine and implement specific lessons. We call our lessons or groups of lessons playlist. And so you'll be able to examine and implement specific playlists, one of them called our Daily Dose of Hope, specifically for students, and playlists specifically for the adults in the system. We call that our staff well-being and our hope playlist to really move the needle. The culminating experience is the development of a personalized school hope plan. Once again, it takes us back to that managing complex change. We're building vision, we're building skills, we're building incentives, we're building resources, but we're also building that action plan. And this is going to provide you with metrics and analytic reports that help you monitor progress in real time to make those data informed decisions that really support each learner in your system. What I've come to learn about the power of this professional learning series is that it answers that so what now what question, right? So you're supported with targeted learning and teaching resources. Those are the lessons, AKA our playlist, that address areas of focus that are identified in your personalized assessment results. And so you're being able to deepen your learning, continue your learning, or even start your learning based on your own personalized data. And so let's pause for a second. Jasmine said that this is going to be a quick 30 minutes, just the tip of the iceberg, everyone. So at this point, I just want us to pause for a second. And I want to get you all involved in this process. And so you've been learning about different professional learning opportunities. Now we invite you to experience one of the foundational Thrively resources for yourself. And so on your screen is a QR code that will take you to our Thrively 2-minute Hope survey. Also in the chat will be a link for those that want to click the link to access this Hope survey. So Jasmine, I didn't like talk to you about this before, but I'm going to do a really bad teacher move right now because I put something on the screen and I'm asking them to fill something out that will take 2 minutes. But as they're doing that, I'm actually going to be talking over them, explaining it, right? And so I should have talked about it and then shared the information with them. But based on our time, I'm going to move forward. And so if you do have your phone, scan that QR code, take our 2-minute Hope survey. If you can access it in the link, feel free to do that. But I am modeling a bad teacher move, which is now talking as you read through the Hope survey. Just to provide some context, at Thrively, once again, we examine hope not as an emotion, but as a cognitive trait. And so we developed the Hope Survey inspired by Rick Schneider's groundbreaking work on hope theory back in 2000. So it's been 25 years, and they've conducted neuroanalysis of the frontal cerebral cortex of the brain. And that's where hope actually resides. And what we've learned from this research over time is that hope is measurable, hope is malleable, hope mediates all anxiety in the brain, and it also transforms all cognitive learning functions. We've also learned from the research that hope is the primary predictor of academic, career, and life success. I'll say that again. Hope is the primary predictor of academic, career, and life success. We've also learned through this research that hope develops resilience, and when people are resilient, they are able to overcome any challenge put before them. We also have learned through the research that hope is contagious and hope increases gray matter. And so, all of that from the research. So, our quick 2-minute hope survey assesses the level of hope in every student and every adult in the system. And so, as you take the hope survey, we would love to see just what your overall hope scores are. If you wouldn't mind just sharing those in the chat, just to flood the chat with that as I continue to share a little bit more about hope. And so hope is actually broken down into 3 areas: goals, agency, and pathways. Like we like to call our goals the what power, we call our agency the will power, and we call our pathways the way power. So as you're completing the hope survey, you'll notice that you receive an agency score, you receive a pathway score, and that equals your total hope score. And that can be between the scores of 2 to 236. So thank you, Marilyn. We see that. Come on through, 40 Hope. I see you out there. I see you out there. And so what we learn is that what we learn from the science and psychology of hope is that the goal is to have a hope score of 20 or higher. If we have a score of 20 or higher, science shows us that we will have rewired the brain and our cognitive ability. So anything, any adversity, anything that comes to us, we would be able to move forward with. And so this is an opportunity just to get a hope level. So imagine the power of taking this 2-minute survey and knowing the hope levels of every adult in your building. Because remember, the adults are the critical part of the equation to move the learning and teaching work forward. And so, how do we build the hope of the adults before we can start focusing on learning and teaching in that space? So, thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Angelica, or like I always like to say, Angelica, or could be Angelica. So, apologies for that. And so, once again, Thrively has partnered with Virginia educator and author of the book School of Hope, Kathleen Beachford, to bring hope as we're measuring it as a cognitive trait into classrooms across the nation. So we wanted just to get you involved in what this resource looks like. Before we share 2 final innovative professional learning opportunities designed with you in mind, I would like to share 2 free resources that you can use today just to get a baseline of determining what is the most next or what's the next right step for you and your teams as you think about your professional learning journey. So resource number 1 is our Thrively District Self-Assessment. So it's a 6-question self-assessment that has synthesized all of the research around the key conditions of learning that need to be in place. And so we've done all of the work for you. We've condensed the research that shows that certain enabling conditions are critically important to be in place. They have to be operationalized, and you must move these things forward. And so this district self-assessment allows for you to understand the learning conditions present or absent in your system and have conversations around that. In the chat will be a link to that particular district assessment. The power that we're focusing on now is having every district across the country take a minute and a half to complete the district self-assessment, just to get baseline around here are the conditions that need to be in place. Not because Thrively says so, but this is what 2 decades, 3 decades worth of research has shown us. After you complete the district self-assessment, you'll get a tally score, and based on that tally score, you'll be presented with actionable next steps. Regardless of your score, though, the first actionable next step that we recommend is to complete a comprehensive hope culture audit. Remember, we can't move the learning and teaching work forward for students if we don't have a deep understanding of the hope levels and the systems and structures in place for the adults to move forward. So that leads me to resource number 2, the free resource. It's our Hope Culture Audit tool. And so a link to this resource will be placed in the chat for you as well. So the Hope Culture Audit actually takes the 2-minute hope survey to the next level with a systems level approach to examining the work. This tool helps system leaders critically examine policies, programs, practices that either directly or indirectly impact the psychological well-being of students and staff within a system. And so once again, the Hope Culture Audit tool and the district self-assessment are available online now and are free to take. We like to say it's a scaffold approach. And so if I've taken the 1.5-minute, 6-question district self-assessment to get baseline, I then work with my team or colleagues to complete the Hope Culture Audit. So what now? What, Dr. Smith? What do we do? I don't know. And so one of our final 2 professional learning opportunities is or was designed to support schools and districts after they complete the Hope Culture Audit. We've designed the Hope Culture Audit Professional Learning Series. And so the Hope Culture Audit Professional Learning Series is completed over an academic semester, and it combines a variety of things: personalized executive coaching. There are self-directed modules in 4 curated playlists. Remember, playlists are our collection of lessons and resources in the 4 domain areas that are assessed in the Hope Culture Audit. So the first area is conflict resolution systems. The second area is procedures and routines. The third area is mission and vision. And that fourth area is support and recognition. And it allows you to really begin to support system leaders and staff. When I think about this professional learning series, I think back to my time as a first-year superintendent, which, mind you, was at the start of COVID. So if you really wanted a challenge, step into the superintendency at the start of COVID. But one of my major takeaways for me during this time was, regardless of the efforts, we would not get the academic results we desired if we didn't have the right policies, the practices, the procedures in place, if we didn't understand them systemically, if we didn't operationalize them, and if we didn't have real-time data to track our progress on these areas. And so the power of the culture audit professional learning gives schools and school districts this baseline data and the resources and the executive coaching to help support adults moving this work forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marion. So I'm going to wrap up our professional development, professional learning opportunities with operationalizing MTSS. So when I led the charge also during COVID of MTSS implementation as a district leader, I found that the most challenging part was integrating new approaches into existing frameworks without overwhelming my team, overwhelming my staff. That was the biggest concern. That is why we at Thrively have designed curated playlists specifically for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students, offering resources, activities, and tools that promote hope, resilience, and empowerment. Now, what sets this offering apart is our framework and action plan that helps you operationalize tiered interventions within your school setting, aligning perfectly with your existing MTSS frameworks for behavior and academics. The true power of this approach, guys, is that it transforms MTSS from just a compliance exercise into a dynamic hope building system that creates lasting change and impact for your most vulnerable students. Now, Dr. Marion, we want to spend a little bit of time as we're wrapping up to talk about how we can leverage federal funding to help support all of these initiatives that we shared about today in our schools.
No, I do appreciate that, Jasmine. So at this point, you all might be saying, okay, this is great, and I would love to move this work forward, but we know that there's a lot going on right now in our current reality. So whether that's funding cuts, whether that's staffing shortages, whether that's just the competing priorities, or just the level of uncertainty that's faced in K through 12 and even post-secondary education. And so I like to share that in some of my conversations with school system leaders and in my most recent time at the state level, I've learned that it really is about thinking differently about how we could leverage the federal funding that we already have and think about ways to braid or reallocate existing financial resources. And so I'll share with you just a few ways that others are thinking and the conversations I've been having with school and system level leaders about using different funds to really innovate with Thrively. So I'll talk about a few of these as we wrap up our time. So Title One. So as a starting point, you could leverage those Title One funds to have all students in your school or your school district take our 30 to 45-minute industry first strengths assessment. And that's going to help you begin a personalized learning journey. I've been talking with superintendents about the power of saying that you can say with 100% certainty that yes, in our school district, in our school, we know every student by their name, their need, their individual strength, and their aspiration. And you can utilize the information from the strengths assessment to begin to personalize and to personalize their professional learning journey. So Title II funds, you can actually leverage those to pay for professional development. It could be from our self-directed modules that Jasmine started out with to the whole system-wide professional development where we ended with our Hope Culture audit. And this really focuses on asset-based teaching strategies, enhancing instructional quality, and educator retention. Goes back to our culture of care. Remember that 40% of teachers are leaving the profession within those first 5 years. Thinking about additional title funding, so Title IV, the question that I ask is like, did you know or do you know that students spend between 12,000 to 14,000 hours in their K through 12 education journey? And so you can utilize Title IV funds to access our learner-centered strengths-based platform. In the platform, there's resources that support over 12 programmatic areas, and we provide over 80,000 minutes of standards-based lessons and teacher ready-made scope and sequence resources. Three final resources or funding opportunities is with IDEA. So you can leverage those funds to really explore our tiered resources, tier one, tier two, tier three interventions, highlighting and building on students' abilities to help you personalize educational plans, those IEPs, to take time or give time back to teachers because now they have this information readily available for them. And our final two ways to think differently about federal funding is Perkins 5. So you can leverage those funds to really partner with us to support your CTE programming, your career exploration, just aligning those students' strengths with preparing them for the future workforce demands and enhancing career readiness. And the last one that I throw in here, because oftentimes when we think of Title IX, we think of sports and access and equal access to sports. But you can actually utilize Title IX or leverage these funds to develop and enhance programs that promote gender equity. So, an example would be STEM programming or leadership programming. You can also provide equal access to CTE activities, and you can also utilize these funds to support counseling and mentorship programs. Like in the end, for us, it's about how can we get creative to utilize the funds that we already have and or reallocate them or braid them in acceptable ways to ensure that our supports, the resources, and the professional learning actually gets into the hands of all who need it.
That's good, Dr. Marion. Thank you for sharing.
No, absolutely. And so we are coming to the end of our time together today. As we said, quick, fast overview, a wealth of information. But at the start of the webinar, Jasmine said that. So as we begin to wrap up, let's revisit our learning outcomes. So we had an opportunity to explore how to rethink professional development. We shared our Thrively PD framework and asked you to think about what does that look like in your current context to really focus on sustainable change. We identified ways to think differently about how to leverage federal funding to support a strengths-based learning journey. And we introduced you to a variety of professional learning opportunities, different PD series, in addition to sharing two free resources that I would love for all of you to just utilize by the end of this week. The Thrively 6-question district self-assessment and the Hope Culture audit that can help you begin to get a baseline of where should your transformative PD journey begin. But we want to thank you all for joining us today for From Investment to Impact, Thrively's formula for transformative PD. So one of the things that Jasmine and I want to leave you with is if you are interested in learning more about asset-based learning, learning more about strengths-based education, or you're just interested in talking more about one or more of those PD opportunities or professional learning series to determine what is the next right step for you, your school, or your district, we encourage you to email us directly at thrive@thrively.com. You can also visit us on the web at thrively.com/classroom for additional resources. You can also follow us on social media at Thrively on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, and at Team Thrively on Instagram. And on behalf of Team Thrively, on behalf of this moment that is a movement around strengths-based education, we want to thank you for the privilege of your time today. And until next time, let's continue to humanize learning together as we create those strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful classrooms that increase student achievement. Thank you, everyone.